I've spent the last 3 years building side hustles. I have a sticker shop that sells labels for kid stuff, and this YouTube channel that you're watching right now. These side hustles have been making more than $1,000 a month for a while now, and even more on good months. During my best month selling stickers, I made over $9,000, and during my best month on YouTube, I made over $7,000. Making this extra amount of money has really been life-changing for me and my family. I'm less stressed about money, I'm saving more for retirement, and especially in this economic environment, it's something that I'm very grateful for. Recently, I've been getting a lot of requests from people asking for general advice on how they could do something similar. So in this video, I thought I'd share 10 tips that have really helped me on my journey, and I'm hoping they'll help you out too. When some people hear the word side hustle, they think of driving Uber or picking up a second job. And while there's nothing wrong with these things at all, I personally look for side hustles that are more scalable. The kind of side hustles where the amount of money that you make isn't directly tied to the amount of time that you're putting into it. For example, it takes me about 10 to 20 hours of work to make one YouTube video. And when I first got monetized, this channel was only bringing in between $100 to $200 a month. But now that my audience has grown, even though I'm putting in the same amount of work into each video, I'm making 10 to 20 times that. And who knows, right? Maybe in the future, if I'm able to keep growing my audience, I'll be making even more than that, putting in the same amount of work. On the other side, if you pick a side hustle that's not scalable, if you want to double the amount of money you're making, you have to double your work. Which is a problem because as a side hustle, your biggest constraint is time, which leads us to our next tip. People say that the #1 reason they can't accomplish their goals or their dreams is due to a lack of time. But in my experience, it's actually due to a lack of time management. Seneca said it best when he said, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for our highest achievements if it were all well invested. But when it is wasted on heedless luxury and spent on no good activity, we are forced at last by death's final constraint to realize that it has passed away before we knew it was passing." This quote is so relevant today, and it's coming from a guy who was living in ancient Rome over 2,000 years ago, which shows that time management is really an age-old problem. And while it might be impossible to ever fully solve time management, one of the things that have really helped me is embracing digital minimalism. Technology is becoming more ingrained into our lives, and for a lot of people, it's taking over in an unhealthy way. It's one of the biggest time sinks that we all struggle with today, and it's one of the most obvious things that we can take a look at when we're trying to make time for things that actually matter. Take an audit of the kind of tech devices and apps that you're using on a daily basis. How much time are you spending on them? Are they really improving your life? Is using them getting you closer to achieving your goals? If not, it might be time to make some changes. There's so many other things that I've done to improve my time management over the years, but this video would be way too long if I went over all of them now. So if you're interested, I'll leave a link to these videos over here down in the description below. Growing up, I thought that being a perfectionist was a good thing. I mean, what are the downsides to wanting to make something perfect? But as I get older and I'm trying to achieve more, I found that it's way more useful to be a good enoughist. If you're starting a side hustle, one of the most effective things that you can do is make your first product just good enough and nothing more. Business people call this an MVP, or a minimal viable product. And taking this approach can have a bunch of benefits, including faster time to market, getting customer feedback quickly, and general cost effectiveness. If you have an idea that you want to pursue, think about how you could launch it in just 1 month. What are things that actually matter? What steps could be skipped? And what are things that could wait for a future version, provided that you're successful with the first? You don't have to create a masterpiece, and if it's your first time doing something, it's unlikely that you will anyways, even if you spent years trying to do so. I started this YouTube channel 3 years ago, and the first video that I made was far from perfect. It was actually pretty bad. What would have happened if I spent those 3 years trying to make the most perfect YouTube video that I ever could, instead of just posting one that was good enough? Would it be better than the ones that I'm making now? I really doubt it. What you really want to focus on is getting better at what you do. And the only way to do that is by putting in the reps. When you start, you're gonna be bad and you have to accept that. But over time, you will improve. The most natural thing to do when you're first starting out is to take a look around at what's working and to copy it. I mean, if it's working for somebody else, it's gonna work for you too, right? The problem with this is that it takes more skill to create something new than to copy it. And oftentimes these copycats end up looking like generic ripoffs of the original product. If you're starting a side hustle and you're looking to enter a market, yes, it's important to look at your competitors and see what's working. But if you want to be successful, you need to do something different. You have to stand out in some way and improve on what's currently available. Think of things that could be useful, but none of your competitors are offering. Or look for common problems that nobody else is solving. Don't just be a cheap imitation. The opportunities are in the gaps between what everybody else is doing. They say to be successful in anything, you need hard work and persistence. But there's another element to this equation that I think is often overlooked, and that's experimentation. As the old saying goes, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. If you ever find yourself struggling to make progress, no matter how hard you're working or how long you're working for, one thing that might help you break through is to start focusing on experimentation. Say you've been trying to build an audience. You've been posting on social media every day and you've been doing it for a while. If you're not getting any traction, it might be time to experiment with different styles of content or changing up what you're talking about altogether. Not only are you more likely to stumble on something that actually works, you'll be constantly pushing yourself outside your comfort zone and you'll be growing as a person. Most people are self-centered, and it makes sense. We can only see and experience life through our own perspective. But not only can putting yourself aside and thinking about others have a positive effect on your relationships, it can also help you in business. One of the biggest hurdles that I see with people just starting out is that they're just too focused on themselves. I'll get messages saying, "Hey Tim, I started an Etsy shop. I listed 10 items like you said. I took good photos like you said, and I wrote good descriptions like you said. Why aren't I getting any sales?" My response to these questions are always the same. That it's not just about the basic step-by-step stuff for Etsy's algorithm or SEO. That's the easy part. The hard part is putting yourself into your potential customer's shoes and asking different types of questions, like, how does your product help them? Why would someone want it? And why would someone buy your product over a competitor's? These are the questions that you should be focusing on, because once you can answer them and communicate those answers to your customers, that's when the sales will come. Say there's a spectrum with being a hobbyist on one side and being a real business on the other. When you're starting a side hustle, you can be anywhere you want to be on this line. The choice is yours. If you want to treat it like a hobby and not take things too seriously, you don't care about how much money you make and you just want to have fun, that's great. That's a healthy way of looking at things. And if you want to put your head down and you want to work really hard for a long time and you want to leave nothing on the table and try to make as much money as you possibly can, that's also good. That's a respectable thing to do as well. But what you can't do is run it like a hobby and expect the same results as if you were running it like a business. It just doesn't work that way. Just like with anything, you get out of something what you put in. And if you're just putting in the bare minimum, expecting anything more than that is just unrealistic. And on the same note, if you're running it like a business, you can't expect it to be fun all the time. Yes, there are gonna be times where it's really rewarding, and if you pick the right side hustle, you're gonna love what you do. But there's also gonna be times where you're gonna have to endure long hours of hard work. There's going to be periods of stress and uncertainty, and there's gonna be times where you're gonna wonder if this is even worth it at all, and times that you're gonna wanna quit. But that's the name of the game, right? If you're expecting maximum results, that's what you signed up for. Being on one side of the spectrum and expecting results from the other side is just gonna lead to frustration and disappointment. Sometime after graduating university, I learned about the rule of 72, and it blew my mind. For those of you that don't know, it's a formula that goes like this. You take 72 and you divide it by the rate of return on an investment. This will give you an approximate time it will take for your investment to double. This, in combination with the fact that the S&P 500 returns 9 to 10% per year on average, means that any money that you put into an index fund that tracks it should double every 7 to 8 years in the long term. Being around 25 at the time, I figured that I had about 5 doubling periods before I retired at 65. And it reframed every purchasing decision that I made since then. Yeah, I could go out for a weekend and spend $200 on drinks and a fancy dinner. Or I could invest it and instead have $6,400 when I'm 65. If you're young and you're considering buying that new Apple Vision Pro that everyone's talking about, you could spend $3,500 to get that today, or you can invest it and it would be $112,000 by the time you're 65. Yeah, it might be wise to skip that purchase. Anyways, this line of thinking made me really frugal in my 20s. And I'm still pretty frugal now, but one thing that's definitely changed is my willingness to invest in myself. When I started my sticker shop, I invested about $300 into the supplies and equipment that I needed. My past self would say, hey, $300 would be $9,600 when you're 65. But this initial investment eventually led to $75,000 to $80,000 in profits over the 3 years that I've been doing this. Obviously, a lot of time and hard work went into that as well, but there's no arguing what was the better return on investment here. While I'm still pretty frugal with most things, I'm now more willing to spend money on opportunities where I can bet on myself. The truth is, your biggest asset isn't some stock portfolio or your house, it's yourself. There's no investment out there that has more of an ability to change your life than you, so don't be afraid to invest in yourself. Okinawa, Japan is considered one of the world's blue zones, areas where the population has a much higher life expectancy than the global average. While there's probably a multitude of things that contribute to this, one of the things that can't be ignored is that they practice hara hachibu, which is the dieting practice of eating only until you're 80% full. While this is considered the secret by many to living a long and healthy life, I can't help to think that it also applies for people looking to have a long and healthy career. When I first started trying to build income streams, I prescribed to all the common advice that's out there. You gotta give 110% every day. You have to make sacrifices, you have to sleep less, and you have to do more. I don't know if it's because I'm older now or if I'm just lazy, but when I tried doing this, I got burnt out fast. For me, it was completely unsustainable, and honestly, I just wasn't having fun working this way. I'm now prescribing this 80% rule to my work. I'm only putting 80% effort into everything. And honestly, it feels like I finally have breathing room. I feel like I can go at this pace forever. So if you feel like you're always behind and you feel like you could burn out at any moment, this could be something that you want to try. So you've been working on your idea for a long time and you're not seeing any results. It seems like no matter what you do or what you try, you're not getting any traction. How do you know when it's time to quit and try something else? On one side, you don't want to be wasting time working on something that has no chance on ever being worth it. But on the other side, you don't want to quit too early because you might be close to breaking through. It took me over a year of making videos just to get 3,000 subs on this channel. But after that, I went from 3,000 to 20,000 in about a month. And my channel continued to grow from there. This is a tough question to answer because I feel like it's different for everybody. But for me personally, it comes down to two questions. One, did you really give it an honest try? And two, when you're old and on your deathbed, would you regret quitting? Answering those questions honestly always gives me clarity when I'm trying to make a decision that's right for me. If you're thinking that it might be time to make a change and you're looking for ideas of side hustles that you can try, you can check out this video over here. If not, thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you found this useful. Take care of yourselves and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.